think about the difference between these two statements. The first statement is this: the rooster crows and the sun rises. The rooster crows and the sun rises. The second statement is this: the rooster's crow makes the sun rise. The rooster's crow makes the sun rise. Most statements have roosters and crowing and sun rising. What's the difference between the two statements? What's the difference? Question of coincidence, perhaps? Question of cause? If you are a rooster, you might think about all of this in one way. If you're an astronomer, you might think about it in quite a different way. As we were driving down here, Cam, of course, heard this sermon at Siobhan's earlier. She said to me, you could have also said that every time Dan goes to Wrigley Field, the Cubs win. Which is absolutely true. I've been there 3 times, and every time the Cubs have won. So they should be giving me a season ticket, I think. If there is a cause and effect relationship. So what is it, cause and effect, or is it coincidence? When the rooster crows and the sun comes up, which is it? Coincidence, cause and effect? That question sort of sets us up to make some sense out of how today's gospel reading began. You've heard that Jesus and his disciples happened upon a man who was born blind, and the disciples asked Jesus the question that would come to mind in such a situation, and you have asked the same question in circumstances that have come up in your life. The disciples said to Jesus, who sinned? Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Somebody messed up. These things don't just happen, do they, Jesus? Somebody messed up. Somebody did something wrong so that this man was born blind somehow. Somebody screwed up. And Jesus responded in a rather curious way. Jesus said, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's work might be revealed through him. So that God's work could be revealed through him. I don't know whether that solves problems for you or lets the problem continue, because there is still this question of why. Why did this happen? Why did it happen to me? Why did it happen to somebody I love? This horrible disaster, whatever it is, the earthquake in Japan, the car accident, whatever it was, why did it happen? This disease, why did it happen? There needs to be a cause, doesn't there? There needs to be somebody to blame. And if I can't find anybody else to blame, what do we say? It was God's will. It was somehow an act of God. I used to be able to get some consolation out of that, but it's been probably 26 years since that line of thinking made any sense to me. 26 years ago, my 2-year-old baby was in the hospital, having just now been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That was her second birthday present. In those days, they put the baby in the hospital for a week while they taught the parents all the things the parents have to know about taking care of a baby with diabetes. So my baby's in the hospital, and we go to the hospital every day for classes and so on, and then spend time with Abby, and people would come to visit us like people do when you're in the hospital. And so many people were saying, it's God's will. God's will. And I started saying to myself, God who tortures 2-year-olds? God who inflicts pain on 2-year-olds? I wasn't so sure I wanted to believe in a God like that. But so I went home and I started doing some research, because that's how I make sense out of things. I research until I go crazy. And I found out that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Nobody knows why it happens. They're doing a lot of research now, and they're beginning to sneak up on potentially some of the triggers and how one might conceivably begin to intervene, but we're not there yet. The truth is, right now, nobody knows why autoimmune diseases happen. They just happen. Someday we may know, but we don't now. So I just can't imagine this being God's will. Some other people, because I was a pastor at the time, a brand new young pastor, some people were saying to me, this was God's will because God would use this to make you a better pastor. So now I'm saying, God abuses my baby to make me a better pastor? This is not all fitting together terribly well for me. And so from that time on, I've not been able to say those kinds of phrases that some other people seem to be able to say. And maybe you can say them too, and if they come from your heart and if they work for you, that's fine. I can't say them. You will not hear me say them because I can't. However, something happened in this story that we read. Something happened in this story that does make some sense to me. Jesus said that this happened so that God's work could be revealed. So that somehow or other, God could go to work in this situation and make something happen that would help people understand something about God. Which made me start to wonder. So where is God in these circumstances? Where is God in these circumstances that drive us crazy? What is God's role in circumstances where things go wrong? We wonder what God is up to. We wonder what God is trying to do. And this story that we heard this morning does help. It helps me at least. In John's Gospel, most of the stories that he tells, he never calls anything a miracle. Nothing is a miracle in John's Gospel. Instead, what happens in John's Gospel, he calls signs. Signs, like road signs. When you go down the road and you see this sign and it tells you to turn or tells you to stop or whatever. In John's Gospel, these things are signs. That's what he intends for us to see them as. This story, for example, today. A sign that points us maybe in the direction of an answer. A sign that somehow helps us see God at work. This is a sign, John will say. A sign that somehow or other God has an astonishing ability to step into a circumstance and do something amazing that will let us discern God's presence and God's help and God's strength and God's care. Somehow or other, we will see God at work because it's a sign. And so the story started to unfold, and Jesus seems to be picking his fights in a rather unusual way. This all happened on Sabbath day. Now there was this long-standing tradition, ancient tradition, from the time of Moses for 2,000 years or better. Sabbath is a sacred, holy day. One of the 10 Commandments, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. And one of the things about Sabbath is that people were not to work. And so what constitutes work? What are we supposed to do or what are we not supposed to do on Sabbath? And the rabbis had, through pondering and questioning and wondering and discussion back and forth, had figured out a list of things. This is what you can do on Sabbath because it is permitted, but these things are work. And you shouldn't do them on Sabbath. So Jesus shows up this Sabbath day and sees this man born blind. Now the man was born blind. This was no medical emergency. Jesus could have waited until Tuesday or Wednesday. But on Sabbath day, he heals this man, which was a kind of work. Now, if the man had been having a heart attack, that would have been permitted. To intervene to save a life, that was legitimate on Sabbath. But to do this miracle that he did was not proper, according to the tradition. And the way he did it, making the mud paste and spreading it on the man's eyes, was work. Was not to be done on Sabbath. And sending him off to wash in the pool. He should have washed the day before or waited until the day after, but washing on Sabbath was a kind of work. All of these things were things that should not have happened on that day. You can almost see Jesus sort of goading them, pushing them, to make them ask the question, who matters more? Does the tradition matter more, or do I, Jesus, matter more? Who matters more? And as the story unfolds, and over and over and over, they keep asking this guy, now what happened and who did it? And you can hear as the story unfolds, question after question, telling after telling. The man, every time he tells the story, sees a little bit better. By the end of the story, he knows a whole lot more about Jesus than he did at the beginning of the story, although nothing happened to increase his knowledge except that he was simply telling the story over and over. He starts out saying, this man, don't know who he is. Pretty soon this man is a prophet. And by the end of the story, this man who is a prophet is also someone sent by God. As the man tells the story, he keeps picking up the signs. And the signs keep pointing him in the right direction. And pretty soon the man knows Jesus pretty well. The people who refused to see the signs keep getting blinder and blinder and blinder. I suppose that's a good thing, at least on the part of the man who keeps seeing more and more and more. But as you listen to his story unfold, this healed man had his identity questioned. his integrity questioned, and his sanity questioned. This healed man, his parents left him hanging in the lurch. They refused to come to his defense. And by the end of the story, this man who was healed has been thrown out of his church, out of his community, out of his family, been sort of kicked off to the side, thrown out. All sorts of nasty things happen to this guy because he has been healed. But he does know Jesus. He does know Jesus. But everything else in his life has been pretty much trash. I can almost hear him if the story had ended just a little bit differently. I could almost hear this guy walking up to Jesus at the end of the story and saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for the gift of sight. I appreciate that, but the next time you want to show your glory, maybe you should pick somebody else. Maybe you should pick somebody else, because this really got to be a nasty thing for this poor guy, unless knowing Jesus really matters. Unless knowing Jesus really matters. Matters enough to follow the signs no matter where they take us. Matters enough to stay with it no matter what. Because the good news in the story is that God knows how to put up the road signs. God knows how to put up all these road signs so that we follow them one by one until we come to faith. God knows somehow, according to this story, and this I do really believe is true because again and again in my own life I have experienced it. God knows how to participate somehow in our circumstances in ways that help us come to know Him better. No matter who made the mess, no matter how the mess happened, no matter why the mess happened, God puts up some signs that gets us through. God puts up some signs that help us find faith. God puts up some signs that reveal God at work, and we learn to see it. And in time we learn to see that the signs are not coincidence. The signs are not coincidence. No matter what or who may or may not have caused or not caused the circumstance, the signs are not coincidence. The signs are not accidents. The signs are not flukes. The roosters and the astronomers can think whatever they wish to think about cause and effect and the reasons why, and maybe somewhere along the way we will find some answers too. But in the meantime, don't miss the signs. Don't miss the signs. The signs that point us toward Jesus. The signs that point us toward faith. Let us pray. In the midst of the circumstances of our lives, help us to see what we need to see. Help us see how to order our lives rightly. Help us see how to live responsibly. And when the circumstances twist and turn in ways that nobody understands, help us see the signs that point us toward Jesus, the signs that bring us into deep and true faith.